Hello class, and welcome to today's lesson, which is about writing equations. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to translate from verbal expressions to equations and from equations to verbal expressions. We're going to start by talking about what an equation is. So an equation must have four separate things. First, it must have a number. It has to have at least one. It could have more than one number, but we have to have at least one number involved. Same thing with the operation. Whether it's adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, we need to have at least one of those things happening, if not more. We also need to have a variable. Again, you can have one variable, you can have multiple variables. The key thing that separates an equation from an expression, which is what we have been working with, is there is an equal sign. So there's going to be something on the left side of the equal sign and something on the right side of the equal sign. We've already discussed in class some of the key words that you can use for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. The two key words that you're going to want to pay attention to when you're dealing with equations is or equal. Those are going to be the two biggest key words that are going to tell you where the equal sign goes. So is and equal are going to tell you where the equal sign goes within the problem. So we're going to start by writing the equation. So they're going to give us the sentence, we're turning it into the math expression. So 7 times a number squared is 5 times the difference of k and m. The first thing we have here to work with is 7 times a number squared. If they don't give you a specific variable, which this one does not, I usually just pick x. So 7 times x squared, squared means second power. There's that keyword is, which is going to tell me there's now an equal sign. And then 5 times the difference of k and m. So we're going to have 5. And then remember, difference means the subtraction needs to be in parentheses. So k minus m in those parentheses. If I come down to this second one now, I've got 6 plus the quotient of a number and 8 is 24. So I'm going to start with 6 plus. Remember, quotient means division. Again, it just tells us a number. That's going to be x. And then it says quotient, so I'm going to put that over 8 equals 24. Another acceptable way to write this out would be 6 plus x divided by 8, putting that in the parentheses because quotient is our division word for parentheses. And then equals 24. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So we've got 4 times the sum, that's our parentheses word for adding, of x plus 9. So 4 on the outside, x plus 9 in those parentheses. Is, once again, being our equals word. And then we got 3 times the difference of x minus 8. Again, difference puts our subtracting in parentheses. Getting into our word problem now. We've got 799 teens were surveyed. Of the part of the group that has social media, 430 students said comments online are mostly kind, and 193 students said comments online are mostly not kind. Write an equation to find the number of teens who are not on social media. So we have to pause and think here, what is our goal? Our goal is to find who's not on social media. They have to be part of the bigger group. In order to get the bigger group all together, we're going to take what we know, which is in this case, that 430 students said comments were kind, plus the 193 students who said they aren't kind, plus our students that aren't on social media. So that's all 3 groups that are represented in the problem. All of them combine or go together to the 799 students that were surveyed. So sometimes there's not those direct word clues from that first lesson that we went over already with the expressions where there was the word clue chart. So sometimes you're going to have to use some logical processing to decide if you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So we've got the 12 chapters she's already read, and we have to add on the remaining part. There was a word clue in here, and that was the word per. Remember, per means multiplication. So we're taking your 8 days and multiplying by the chapters that she needs to finish, and that's going to give you your total of those 32 chapters. Next, we're going to talk about what happens if there's an equation that has more than one variable involved in it. So the horsepower of a motor is the product of the motor speed and the torque divided by 5,252. So there are 3 separate things that we don't know in this problem. The horsepower, and then the motor speed, and the torque. So you're going to want a separate variable to stand for each of those things. I usually like to go with the first letter of the word. So I'm going to use H for horsepower. I'm going to use M for motor speed. Normally I would use T for torque, but because a T can look like a plus sign, I'm going to go ahead and change that to R. If you use T, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that you are writing equations so that you can actually read your writing. So it says the horsepower is, so H, and then we've got is, which is that equal sign, the product of the motor speed and the torque. So those are being multiplied. Remember, product is our parentheses word for multiplying. And then divided by the 5,252. If you don't want to put that in parentheses, you could also write it in the fraction form where we've got M and R in our numerator and then the 5,252 in the denominator. The key here is if you have multiple unknowns, you need multiple variables so that you can keep each part of the problem separate. Go ahead and try this one on your own. In this case, your unknowns are the perimeter, the length, and the width, and we plug those in to get P is equal to 2 in parentheses L plus W using the sum, and we have the parentheses around our addition. Last piece is going to be to write the sentences when we are given the equation. So I'm going to go through a couple examples for each of these. Remember, these are not the only possible sentences that we could do. So I'm going to start with this first one. I've got 6 times, and then I need a word to get that addition into parentheses. So I'm going to use the sum of X and 9. Remember, if our numbers are below 10, we have to write them out, is 72. Another example of a possible sentence for the first one could be 6 multiplied by the quantity. Again, another word to symbolize that those values are in parentheses of, and then I want to indicate now that they're being added. So X plus 9 equals 72. There are a number of other options you could do. Those are just 2 of the simplest ones. For this second one down here, a first option would be 1/2 of M. Remember, of is a multiplying word. Decreased to show our subtraction by T to the 3rd power is 132. This one, since we've got the double variables, we need to specify which variables we are using. So because the first one is M and the second one is T, we want to make sure we are specifying which variable goes where. Another example for this one could be a number T. If you are starting the sentence with a variable, you always want to put the phrase a number in front of it. So a number T cubed, which gives us that 3rd power, less than, which is the phrase that switches that order of subtraction to put the T to the 3rd power after the minus sign. And then I'm going to say 1/2 of M equals 132. So again, the big key here is using those word clues that we've already discussed with the expression to figure out the best way to put these sentences together. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Couple of options displayed here. Again, these are not the only options. If you have questions about your particular sentence, feel free to reach out and let me know. If there is anything else you have questions about from this lesson, feel free to ask me during class or send me an email to let me know.